Dirty work. James is a shiny red engine. He always likes to look his best. And he likes his friends to know he's the smartest engine on Sodor. Thomas, Percy and Emily were at Tidmouth Sheds. James arrived. He'd been to the fitter's yard for repairs. He was excited to get back to work.
I hope I get an important job today,
wheezed James. The Fat Controller arrived. I need an engine for a special, boomed the Fat Controller. The mayor must be taken to the Festival of Lights at the Scottish Castle.
I'm the perfect engine for that job, sir,
James whistled. Very well, James, said the Fat Controller. James was delighted. Thomas, Emily and Percy, added the Fat Controller. If you finish your jobs in time, you can all go to the festival too.
I can't wait to see the festival,
peeped Percy. Neither can I, wheezed Emily. You'll be the star of the show, James, tooted Thomas. That made James very happy. He couldn't wait to make a grand entrance.
We have lots of jobs to do first,
peeped Percy. You haven't anything to do all day, James, wheezed Emily. Can you help us?
Me?
Snorted James.
I can't help. It's much more important for me to look really smart when I arrive at my important passenger.
And James puffed proudly away to the washdown. At the washdown, James was very happy. He enjoyed having his boiler brushed and his cab cleaned. Percy stopped by on his way to the quarry.
I still have lots of work to do, he puffed. Can you help me, James? Sorry, Percy, sniffed James. It's much more important that I look smart. Now I need to be polished.
Soon James was being polished until he shone.
Don't forget to buff up my buffers, he tooted happily.
Thomas puffed up with a long line of coal trucks.
Cling, clang,
they giggled.
Those trucks look troublesome, laughed James.
They are, tooted Thomas. Can you help me, James?
Sorry, Thomas,
cried James.
I need to look smart for my passengers. Now I have to get my funnel swept.
As his funnel was being swept, James smelt a fishy smell.
Bust my buffers, he cried. What's that?
It was Emily. She was pulling fish trucks very slowly. These are very heavy. Can you help me, James? She puffed.
I need to have some special flags fitted,
sniffed James.
They'll make me look smart when I arrive at the festival.
At last, James was ready. His flags were fitted, his buffers beamed, and his paintwork shone from funnel to footplate. Everyone he passed cheered and waved.
I'm the smartest engine ever,
James puffed proudly. On the way to collect the mayor, James passed the Scottish Castle. It looked wonderful. Everything was ready for the festival, and the Fat Controller was waiting. But there were no engines. James was surprised.
Where are Thomas and Percy and Emily?
They haven't finished their work yet, boomed the Fat Controller, so they won't be here for the festival. James felt terrible.
I must help my friends, otherwise they won't be here to see me be the star of the show.
James found Thomas. He was still having trouble with his coal trucks. I'm going to miss the festival, he sighed sadly.
No, you're not, puffed James, because I'm going to help you.
And James did. James buffered up, and he helped, even though he got covered in coal dust. Next, James found Percy in the quarry. Percy was struggling to pull the quarry trucks. I'm going to miss the festival, Percy sighed sadly.
No, you're not, puffed James, because I'm going to help you.
And James did, even though he got covered in quarry dust. Then James found Emily at the junction. "I can't pull the fish trucks any further, James. They're too heavy. I'm going to miss the festival," she sighed sadly.
"No, you're not," puffed James, "because I'm going to help you."
And James did, even though he knew he would be covered in smelly fish. At the Scottish castle, the brass band was waiting. A red carpet was ready, and so were Thomas, Percy, and Emily. They were all waiting for James to arrive with his important passenger. "Here comes James," tooted Thomas. Everyone cheered as James arrived with the mare. But James was worried. After helping his friends, he didn't look smart at all, and he certainly didn't feel like the star of the show.
"James,"
said the Fat Controller,
"you are a very hard-working and really useful engine."
James was amazed.
"You're not cross with me, sir, even though my flags are drooping and I'm covered in coal dust and quarry dust and fish?" "What matters, James," said the Fat Controller, "is that you helped all your friends and safely delivered your important passenger. Well done."
James was very happy. And his friends all thought that James was still the star of the show. Thomas and the Big Bang. Thomas is a cheeky little engine. He likes to have fun with his friends. He likes playing hide and peep with Percy. And he enjoys joking with James. One day, Thomas was fitted with a brand new whistle. The whistle gleamed, and Thomas beamed. And he blew it all day long. He blew it softly, and he blew it loudly. He blew it in stations, and he blew it in Misty Valley. Thomas thought it the most wonderful whistle he had ever had. Thomas puffed into the wharf with a train of empty trucks. The thin controller was there.
"Thomas," he said, "the narrow-gauge engines are bringing bricks, flour and timber. They must be loaded into your trucks by tea time."
The thin controller left. Thomas felt very happy, so he blew his new whistle loudly. Rheneas was surprised. He jumped and biffed into his trucks. Skarloey and Sir Handel laughed. Even Rheneas thought it was funny. "That was fun," tooted Thomas. Now he wanted to play more jokes and have more fun. So Thomas chuffed off to look for another engine to peep. Later, Rusty puffed into the wharf. He was shunting trucks full of bright red bricks. They were to be unloaded into Thomas's empty trucks. But Thomas wanted to have more fun. He rolled up behind Rusty. Rheneas and Skarloey held their puff. Thomas blew his new whistle, peep. Rusty jumped and he biffed his trucks. Rusty was covered in red brick dust. Skarloey and Rheneas both laughed. Thomas thought it was tremendous fun. Rusty thought it was fun too. Now he wanted to join in. "Can't catch me," hooted Rusty. And he steamed around the wharf. Thomas puffed after him. Everyone was laughing and having fun. But no one collected the bricks. Then Thomas had another idea. Sir Handel will be arriving with the trucks of flour soon, he tooted. Why don't we all peep 'em at once? The little engines were excited, and they all found hiding places. As Sir Handel puffed into the wharf, there was nobody to be seen. Now, Thomas cried. He blew his new whistle as loudly as he could. The little engines blew their whistles too. Sir Handel biffed his trucks in surprise. Flour flew up into the air like a great white cloud. You look like a ghost, laughed Rusty. Whoa, laughed Sir Handel. Look at me, I'm a ghost. And he steamed away. Soon all the engines were chasing each other, and no one was doing any work. Thomas had another idea. Peter Sam is on his way. Let's peep him as well. And the little engines agreed this was a very good idea. Peter Sam trundled into the wharf. Thomas got ready with his whistle. The little engines got ready too. Beep! Peter Sam shot forward. He bashed into his flatbed so hard they burst through the buffers, smashed through oil drums stacked on the wharf, and splashed into the canal. Oh my, cried the little engines. Cinders and ashes, cried Thomas. The thin controller arrived at the wharf. What has been going on here? He said sternly. There are bricks all over the rails, flour all over the warehouse, and now timber is in the canal. I'm sorry, sir, wheezed Thomas sadly. It's all my fault. I just wanted to play jokes and have fun. The thin controller was very cross. You must clear up this mess at once, he cried, and your trucks must be loaded by tea time. As soon as the workmen had reloaded the bricks, Thomas started to work. But the little engines still wanted to play. They wanted to wheesh the dust and flour at each other. No more jokes, whistled Thomas. We have work to do. And he shunted the trucks into a siding. New trucks of flour were now ready, and Thomas took them to the sidings as well. At last the workmen had the timber wagons ready, and Thomas shunted them into the siding too. Finally, Thomas had one long train of bricks, flour and timber, and it wasn't even tea time. The thin controller came back. He saw Thomas, but Thomas was hiding his trucks. Where are your trucks? Said the thin controller crossly. Thomas smiled. He was playing a trick. He puffed forward slowly. Here they are, sir, he whistled happily, loaded up and ready to go. The little engines laughed, and the thin controller laughed too. Thomas, he said, that was a good joke. You are a really funny engine. And Thomas puffed happily away. Edward and the Mail. Edward is a very wise engine. He knows all about the Fat Controller's railway. The other engines know they can always ask Edward for help. One morning, the Fat Controller came to Tidmouth Sheds. Percy has broken down. He's at the repair yard, boomed the Fat Controller. I need another engine to take the mail. Edward could do it, chirruped Emily. Yes, huffed Henry. Edward knows how to do everything. Good idea, said the Fat Controller. But Edward had never taken the mail before. So Topham Hatt told Edward to collect the parcels and deliver them just like Percy. Edward wanted to ask how Percy would deliver the mail, but he didn't want to look silly.
I don't want the Fat Controller to think I can't deliver the mail, puffed Edward. I'll have to work out how to do it by myself.
When Edward arrived at the mail depot, the station master was waiting for him.
You have lots of parcels to deliver today, said the station master. Some for Farmer McColl, some for the children's party at Maithwaite, and some more for the school.
Edward didn't know which of the parcels to deliver first.
Maybe I should go to Farmer McColl's, Edward sighed. Or maybe to school.
Edward puffed up to a junction. Thomas was waiting.
Hello, Edward, chuffed Thomas. Are you delivering the mail today? Yes, puffed Edward.
You'll be good at that, tooted Thomas. Edward really wanted to ask Thomas which parcels he should deliver first, but Edward didn't want to look silly. The signal changed. Edward watched Thomas puff away. He was worried.
Everyone thinks I know how to do everything, Edward moaned. I hope I can get it right.
Edward decided to take the parcels to the children's party first. But Edward didn't know that Percy delivered the parcels in a special order. He accidentally left Farmer McColl's parcels with the children, and he whooshed away. Edward puffed across the countryside. Next, he delivered some parcels to the school. And finally, he delivered the rest of the parcels to Farmer McColl.
That was easy, chuffed Edward. I made all the deliveries and I didn't have to ask anyone how to do it.
He felt very proud and very relieved. But the Fat Controller was getting lots of phone calls. Edward had delivered the wrong parcels to the wrong places. When Edward found out what he had done, he was upset.
I'll have to deliver them again, he wheezed sadly.
Edward knew everyone was waiting for their parcels. He would have to hurry. First, Edward collected the parcels from the children's party. Then, he collected the parcels from the school.
Now I have to collect the parcels from Farmer McColl, puffed Edward.
And he steamed away. Edward was unhappy.
I must not be late with these deliveries, he chuffed.
Edward didn't want to let the Fat Controller down.
I must hurry, he wheezed.
Edward raced on.
Mustn't be late, mustn't be late.
But then, Edward had to stop at a junction. He didn't know which way was the fastest track to take to the farm. Edward was in such a rush, he didn't ask the signalman.
Stop! Shouted the signalman. That track is closed.
Edward rattled round a bend and straight into a barrier. Parcels flew everywhere.
I'll never deliver the parcels on time now, he moaned.
Edward felt terrible. Soon the parcels were loaded back into Edward's trucks. Edward knew now he had to ask for help.
I must find Percy. I will ask him what to do.
So Edward steamed off to the repair yard. Percy was still being fixed. Percy, will you tell me how to deliver the mail? Edward chuffed.
Of course I will,
peeped Percy. He didn't think Edward was silly for asking at all.
I deliver the parcels in a special order. I always start with the delivery that is furthest away,
puffed Percy.
Then I work my way back to Tidmouth Sheds.
Edward was very happy he had asked Percy what to do. So Edward puffed across the island. Now he knew how to deliver all the parcels in the right order. The children got their parcels in time for the party. The right parcels were delivered to the school, and Farmer McColl was very pleased. Everyone was happy. Everyone knew Edward was a wise engine, but now Edward felt even wiser. Ding-A-Ling! Freddie was a fine old mountain engine. He knew more about the hills, the valleys, the hidden tracks, and the highland villages than any other engine. But there were still some things that Freddie didn't know. One morning, Freddie, Peter, Sam and Mighty Mac were at the wharf. Mr. Percival was going on a family cycling holiday. James was bringing a new bicycle.
You are late, James,
whistled Freddie grandly.
The thin controller is waiting.
I came as fast as I could,
James wished crossly. Freddie was to deliver the bicycle, so it was loaded onto his flatbed.
There's no bell,
James huffed.
I don't think a bicycle bell is important,
puffed Freddie.
It's very important,
snorted James.
It's like a whistle. It lets everyone know you're there.
That made Freddie feel very silly.
One of you must find a bell for the thin controller's bicycle right away,
James steamed snootily. Peter, Sam and Mighty Mac didn't know where to find one, so they looked at Freddie. Freddie didn't know, but he didn't want to ask James.
Of course I know where to find a bicycle bell,
Freddie chuffed quickly. He didn't want James to think he was even sillier. So he puffed quickly out of the wharf. Freddie chuffed along.
Ding-a-long, ding-a-ling, find a bell with the very best ring,
he whistled cheerfully. But he couldn't see a bicycle bell anywhere. Freddie puffed up to a farmer with his cows.
Hooray! He chuffed. A cowbell will be as good as a bicycle bell.
The farmer hung the bell on the handlebars. Just then, Mighty Mac puffed up. The cowbell clanged.
Listen to that, chuffed Freddie proudly. This is far better than a bicycle bell.
But the cows didn't look up.
The cows aren't taking any notice at all,
huffed Mighty.
That'll never do for a bicycle bell,
chuffed Mac. Freddie felt silly, and he chuffed quickly on his way. Then Freddie puffed into Top Station. Cuffy the clown had a ring of bells around his neck. They jingled and jangled.
Hooray! Freddie chuffed. Cuffy's bells would be as good as a bicycle bell.
Cuffy hung the bells next to the cowbell. Just then, Peter Sam puffed up. The bells chimed and tinkled.
Listen to that,
whistled Freddie proudly. But the children kept laughing with Cuffy. The children aren't taking any notice at all, puffed Peter Sam. They'll never do for a bicycle bell. Freddie felt even sillier, and again he chuffed quickly away. Freddie had puffed all over the hills.
I will have to go back to the wharf, he steamed sadly, and tell them all I can't find a bell.
And he huffed slowly away. Freddie arrived at the wharf. He could see Peter, Sam, Mighty Mac and James. They were waiting for him. "I must find a bicycle bell somewhere before they see me," he puffed, and he chuffed quickly away from them. Freddie looked everywhere, and then he saw it. A shiny new school bell. "Hooray!" he whistled. "A big school bell is far better than a little bicycle bell. With a bell that big, everyone will know the thin controller is there." The workman put the bell on the bike, but it was very heavy. The bicycle toppled off the flatbed and crashed to the ground. All the bells jingled and jangled. Peter, Sam, Mighty Mac and James heard the clatter and rushed over. The yard manager was very cross, and everyone looked at Freddie. "The thin controller is waiting for his new bicycle," the yard manager said sternly. "I'll have all the bells taken off, then you must deliver it to him." Freddie felt sillier than he had ever felt. Later, Freddie was puffing glumly out of the wharf. He met Thomas chuffing in. "What's the matter, Freddie?" tooted Thomas. Freddie told Thomas everything that had happened. "And it's all because I felt silly and didn't ask James where to find a bicycle bell." "I'm sure you'll find one soon," Thomas whistled. Suddenly, Freddie saw a bright new foghorn on Thomas's flatbed. "Where are you taking that bright new foghorn?" Freddie asked. "It's not new, it's old," tooted Thomas. "But it still works very well. It has just been cleaned and painted." "Now I know just what to do," Freddie cried excitedly. And he puffed quickly out of the wharf. The thin controller looked at his new bicycle. "There's no bell," he gasped. "Yes, there is, sir," Freddie whistled. He asked the yard manager to take the old bell from the old bicycle. The yard manager polished it once, then he polished it again and put it on the new bicycle. It was as good as new. The thin controller was very happy. "What a good idea, Freddie," he smiled. And James had to agree. Freddie didn't feel silly anymore. He felt very proud. Ding-A-Ling rang the thin controller's bell, and Freddie toot-tooted back.